So that has to be recorded.
Yeah, this is automatically saved. There, I think somebody should speak from there in the mic and check it in the other classroom.
ಮೇಡಮ್, ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ನ ಈ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ, ಇವರು 5 ಜನನೂ ಸ್ಪೀಚ್ ಬರುವಾಗ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಆ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿ. ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಪೋಡಿಯಮ್ ಪ್ಲಸ್ 3 ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮಿಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಅದು ಹತ್ತತ್ರ
ಹಾ,
ಇದೆ
ಅದಕ್ಕೆ
ಸರ್.
ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಈ ಕಡೆ ತಿರ್ಗಿಸ್ಬೇಕು.
We
ಈ
can
ಕಡೆ
keep it there.
ತಿರ್ಗಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್.
I think we can keep
No,
it.
no.
Lag in the stream.
No.
Will be there.
ಬರ್ತಲ್ಲ
Your in
ಇಷ್ಟು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ.
this is okay. But we have to make sure now it's in there. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಸರ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು.
Ask Chennai to speak there.
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಸರ್.
Good afternoon to everyone present here today. On behalf of Dr.B.R.Ambedkar School of Economics University, it gives me great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all gathered here today for this special lecture. We are deeply honored to be joined by our esteemed dignitaries, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Vishwanatha, our Registrar, Srimati Mamata Devi GS, and our Finance Officer, Mr. Prasad, whose continued guidance and leadership strengthen the vision and mission of this university. I would also like to welcome all the faculty, staff, and students who have joined us for this occasion. It is my distinct privilege to extend a warm welcome to our chief guest today, Mr. Ashith Mohan Prasad, retired IPS officer and the Honorable State Chief Information Commissioner of Karnataka. Mr. Prasad has contributed extensively to law enforcement and public administration, both during his tenure as Director General of Police, as well as today in his role of Chief Information Officer. He oversees the implementation of the Right to Information Act, a cornerstone of democratic governance. Please welcome sir with a hearty round of applause. Before we proceed with today's events, I invite Megha and Samashita for the invocation. Thank you both. May I now invite our Registrar, Srimati Mamata Devi GS, to introduce you better to the champion of good governance, accountability, and transparency, whom we have the privilege of hosting here as our chief guest today.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಸರ್ವರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. It gives me immense pleasure that respected guests, faculty, students, dear attendees, it's my privilege to warmly welcome you all to this special lecture on RTI, Right to Information, Equity and Social Justice. We are deeply honored to have with us Mr. Ashith Mohan Prasad, IPS, retired, a distinguished officer and a thoughtful leader who brings with him a wealth of experience and insight. It's my great honor and privilege to introduce you all to today's distinguished speaker and welcome him for this event. We welcome you all, sir, on behalf of this university. Momentum. And I also welcome our respected Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Vishwanath, to this special lecture. And I welcome also welcome Mr. Prasad, Finance Officer, on behalf of this university. And I also welcome all the faculty members, the staff, and dear students to this program. It gives me immense pleasure, sir, to introduce about you to our audience today. Ashith Mohan Prasad, sir, present State Chief Information Commissioner, Karnataka Information Commissioner. Sir is known truly for synonymity with integrity, professionalism, and excellence in the field of law enforcement and public administration. Mr. Ashith Mohan Prasad, sir, is widely recognized as an expert in both criminal and civil investigations. Sir has been known for his methodological approach, attention to detailing, and deep understanding of the law and the legal enforcement. His commitment to continuous learning is reflected in his exceptional academic records. He holds multiple advanced degrees, BA Honours in Economics from Hansraj College, Delhi University, from the batch 1981, Masters in Arts, MA in Economics from Delhi School of Economics in 1983, and MBA and LLB from Bangalore University, Masters in Business Law from National Law School of India University. And this has been, just to name, sir has been an exceptional personality. Sir has been served in the Indian Police Service from 1985 to 2020, spanning an illustrious career of 35 years marked by unwavering dedication and impactful leadership. He is retired as Director General of Police, DGP in charge of Fire Services, Home Guards, and Civil Defence for the state of Karnataka. Over the years, he has held various positions in most crucial capacities and sensitive positions in the Karnataka Police. And his work has directly contributed to enhancing the internal security and strengthening the democratic institutions of the nation and state. Notably, he served as the head of the State Intelligence Department from 2013 to 2018, a role in which he was instrumental in proactively identifying and addressing the emerging security threats. He also held key leadership roles as Director General of Police of Internal Security Division, ADGP Crime and Technical Services, ADGP Modernization and Wireless Communication, and IGP Bangalore Range. Sir's experience in training and capacity building is also equally impressive. He has been served as Director of Karnataka Police Academy, KPA, Mysore, shaping the next generation of police officers with his expertise and vision. One of the most impactful phases of his career was his deputation to the Intelligence Bureau. You all must know, IB is an important organization under Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, from the year 1998 to 2007. During this period, Sir was deeply involved in the collection, collation, and analysis of intelligence, leading to the detection and neutralization of severe and several crime and terrorist modules across the country. His distinguished service has been formally recognized by Government of India, and he was awarded the Police Medal for Meritorious Service in 2001 and prestigious President's Police Medal for his distinguished service in 2011. He has also been empaneled as Director of Police by the Government of India as a testament to his credibility, competence, and contribution. And many more accolades to Sir's career. And now, rightfully, Sir has occupied the seat in strengthening, very rightly told by one of our students, the RTI, the tool of accountable, transparent, and responsive governance. We are deeply privileged, sir, to have you today to share your insights on the great subject with the significance of this university students, right to information, equity, and social justice. In this time where the transparency and accountability are central to this democratic governance, his experience and perspective will surely enlighten and inspire us all. So please join with us for this respectful welcome, followed by Sir's speech. So I just want to bring in certain detailing about the RTI. So the right to information is implicit in the Constitution of India. Citizens groups have long been battled for this right to be exercised by all. The movement for right to information received a fresh impetus from a courageous and powerful grassroots struggle of the rural poor for the right to information to combat rampant corruption in famine relief works. This struggle was led by a people's organization, the Mazumdar Kisan Shakti Sangathan, which literally means an organization for the empowerment of workers and peasants. The reverberations of the struggle led to a nationwide demand for the law to guarantee the right to information to every citizen. With widespread support from social activists, professionals, lawyers, and persons with the bureaucracy, politics, and the media, who are committed to transparent and accountable governance. As a result of the people's movement, today we have this powerful legislation. Three successive federal governments in quick succession have committed themselves to this passage of the law to guarantee with people the right to information, and also the state governments have passed and enacted such administrative laws. It is in this context that the movement for right to information is so important. A statutory right to information would be in many ways the most significant reform in the public sector and the public administration in India in the last 50 years. This is because it would secure for every citizen the enforceable right to question, examine, audit, review, and assess the government acts and decisions to ensure that these are consistent with the principles of public interest, probity, and justice. It would promote openness, transparency, and accountability in administration by making government more open and continuing having a public scrutiny. Thank you for the opportunity. I will now progress with the next step. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request the dignitaries and the chief guest to proceed with the ceremonial lamplight. entries. For us students of economics, this lecture will prove especially relevant. The Right to Information Act is not only a legal instrument, but also a powerful equalizer, ensuring that access to information is not just the privilege of a few, but, as it should be, accessible to all citizens. In advancing transparency, accountability, and fairness of governmental institutions, the Right to Information Act protects values central to good institutional economics. This is central to prosperity, as was championed by Nobel laureate Douglas North. Mr. Prasad's education and experience allows him to provide us with unique, holistic insight into how the Right to Information Act directly intersects with the principles of equity and social justice, values deeply tied to the legacy of Dr.B.R.Ambedkar and the mission of this university. With that, I warmly welcome you, sir, and we eagerly look forward to your insights.
Thank you very much for a very Okay, I'm very delighted to be here in the campus today. I thank Professor Vishwanath ji for having invited me. In fact, I took the initiative of calling him up and asking that I must visit the campus, see the campus. And why did I do that? Because I was very closely associated when this institute was being founded in the year 2017. Dr. Mohan had come all the way from Delhi to inaugurate this institution, and I was part of the government, and I also attended the inaugural ceremony. But after that, I did not have an opportunity to visit this beautiful new campus, and therefore I thought I must take this initiative to be here today. So once again, I thank Professor Vishwanath ji for having given me an opportunity to come here today. I also, all the dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Ms. Mamta, Mr. Prasad, distinguished faculty, students of the institute. Now, I don't want to tell you that I have only come to talk on RTI. RTI, I took it as an excuse to come to you and give you to interact with you. The idea was basically to meet you, to see you, and to also interact with you at a level that how a serious economics student in the present age is responding to the challenges around what they are facing today. Before I joined the Indian Police Service, I was a very serious student of economics, and I still hold economics in a very privileged way. Those who study economics are the privileged students, not in terms of the curriculum, but in terms of the application of economics in all the field that we encounter today. You go to any field without economics, your knowledge is half-baked. And why do I say so? Because when we read newspapers every day, you are all aware the kind of impact Trump tariff is causing havoc on India. And that is where a student of economics should certainly get into motion and try to analyze how each day's development affects our country. Now, it is not that economics is everywhere. When you see the effect of tariff, you will find it affects the economy. And once it affects the economy, there is a consequential effect. How does it affect each and every single one of us? It affects the GDP. Once it affects the GDP, where does it go? It affects the employment rate. It affects the foreign exchange. So it has a multiplier effect all across the sectors of the country. And that is why an incident like tariff may look to be very obscure or far-fetched. But for a student of economics, you need to sit, analyze, and work out the consequences, because every common man or every citizen of India gets affected. And that is where I always considered myself to be privileged when I was doing a serious study of economics in Delhi School of Economics of those days. Now, why do I say those days? Because all these institutes were highly specialized. They presented a school of thought. When we name an institution as a school, we try to underline the word school by a school of thought. And that is why all these schools are identified not by the name, but by the kind of thought or narrative that you project to the society at large. Now, in our time, the best institute was Chicago School of Economics. And I'm talking of 80s. And who was the president of US those days? Ronald Reagan, Republican. And who was his economic advisor? Milton Friedman. And who was Milton Friedman? He was from Chicago School of Economics. He was a professor. And what did he project? He projected first time in global economy, supply side economics. Now, what was supply side economics? Before that, we only talked of Keynesian economics. And what was Keynesian economics? Manage the demand and you control the economy. First time, Milton Friedman brought the concept of supply side. And that is where if you read today any newspaper or any economics journal, you will find the supply side becomes very, very important. And what did Milton Friedman project? As long as you control money supply in the economy, all the activities of the economy can be controlled. And that is where the concept of supply side economics or supply creates its own demand got into traction. Everyone started talking. So the more you create supply, the more demand is generated. Now, a typical example those days was when you traveled on the roads, you found traffic blockade. What did the people suggest as a part of transport economics? Build more roads, build more ring roads. And that is how in Delhi, we had a professor called Professor Mohan Chaudhary, who was expert on transport economics. And he brought the concept of ring roads managed by the Delhi Transport Corporation, what we call the Zero Mudrika service, ring road service in the Delhi capital. So this is how when supply is enhanced, demand automatically picks up. Now when you go to Delhi, you will find Delhi Metro. Now Delhi Metro at one time was an add-on on public transport. Today when you go to catch the Delhi Metro, you cannot find a space inside Delhi Metro. What has happened? When we created the metro in Delhi, we thought we are adding on. And today's supply has created demands. There is more mobility, there is more people traveling on the Delhi Metro than on anything else. And this is how the justification of the concept, supply creates its own demand, was found to be of a first time practical application. So this is just as a diversion. I thought I'll give you an example where economics, how it widens your horizon and how it leads to new frontiers of knowledge. And that is where the application of economics is very important. Now, whenever we are in such institute, what we are taught is theories. A lot of time you must be imagining as youngsters, after all, what is the relevancy of all these theories? Why should we read theories which were propounded about 30 years, 100 years back? For example, Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, Keynesian economics in 1930s, the Great Depression. Now you will all wonder, what is the necessity of wasting time on these? Now always remember, these are tools of analysis. Any theory which you learn here in this campus is only a tool of analysis. And what do you do with the tool of analysis? You apply to the contemporary period and come out with a solution. And those are the solutions that have relevance in the contemporary period or modern times. That is why a very solid grounding of theory is very important in order to become a good applied economist. You go anywhere, whether you work for World Bank, most of my classmates today are working for the World Bank or IMF. They pursued economics to its utmost seriousness. And that is how today the chief economic advisor in the IMF is also my old classmate. So people who diverged, we all diverged into the civil services. People who diverged into the serious academics. They have done much, I would say they have enhanced the frontiers of knowledge to an extent that today the applied sciences have become much more relevant. And that is why I just thought I will bring this aspect. Because whenever you do a serious program in a very specialized institution, the idea is that you must push the frontiers of knowledge beyond your capacity. And that is where the relevancy of economics becomes very, very important. Now today my subject is RTI, equity, justice. Now all these three things are very, very relevant in the modern context. And I am not planning to give you a very structured speech. I'm just trying to make it more interactive so that I can induce you to ask more questions than to hear me in a lecture format. Now the question that we always talk in economics, which you may be aware, is the great debate between growth and equity. You must have heard about it. What is growth and what is equity? Now you must be knowing the first model given of growth was Harrod-Domer model, which you may have been taught here in the class. Now whether growth is important or equity is important, this is a debate where everybody is confronted all through your academic life. Whether we should push the growth or whether we should push the equity. Now the question that comes in, without growth there cannot be equity. But if you only concentrate on growth, then equity gets sacrificed. And that is why you will find in the society today a lot of inequality persisting. And what is inequality symbolized by? In journalistic parlance, we use the terminology 1%, top 1%, how much do they own in terms of wealth, in terms of assets. And you will always find that is the first benchmark of deciding inequality, the top 1% of the population. And you will always remember that the top 1% owns more than 30 to 40% of the asset of the country. And that is what is called the severe inequality prevailing in any country or in any society. And that is where it happens. Whenever you push growth, the inequality becomes extreme. The middle class, the lower middle class, or the urban poor or the rural poor, they keep getting sandwiched. They keep losing out in the run for the growth. And that is why this debate of growth versus equity always takes precedence in our economics debate. Now the alternative side is when you don't have growth, how do you have equity? Because if you have zero growth, then what do you distribute? You only distribute poverty. And that is why the growth has to be built up into the system. Without growth, no equity can come. And that is why you will find that whenever we push for growth, we must have very focused programs of equity. Now in Karnataka, what have we done for equity? You must be very well aware, last election, like 2023, what did we do? We started the concept of freebies. What is freebies? Free transport for ladies, free stipend for unemployed boys, free electricity. So all these combined became a part of our equity mechanism. And today the state invests about 60 to 70,000 crores per annum on the concept of equity. And that is where once this kind of expenditure starts happening, then we need to bring resources to our kitty. Otherwise, this equity over a period of time will evaporate. And that is where the concept is growth. Your economy must grow so that resources can be diverted to equity. And that is the great debate that keeps coming up. Now, whenever we talk of equity, it becomes linked to governance. You must have a good governance to have a good equity. Otherwise, equity will never come through. And the primary reason we come back again is to good governance. Now, let me bring you another chapter, sordid chapter. What happened in Nepal? Why did Nepal political economy suddenly collapsed overnight? On September 8, all these young people, some in school uniform, some in college uniform, youngsters, what we are now categorizing them as Gen Z, next generation. All youngsters flocked the roads and rebelled against the system that was prevailing in Nepal. Now, it was not a one-night affair. People who are serious academicians, they are all analyzing why did it happen in Nepal on one fine night when the whole government, which was well entrenched, had to be taken out. Now, the question is very simple. If you analyze the economy of Nepal, you will find Nepal since 2008 was registering negative growth rate. Number one, every year more than 7 lakh people were migrating to foreign countries. The population of Nepal below 30 years is about 56%. In India, we have 52. In Nepal, we have more than that, about 56%. Now, the stagnant economy with nepotism, with corruption rampant, it fueled the young minds. And the digital technology, what we call digital communication, where you are linked to each one of you, are linked to each other every second, every minute, which was not there in our generation. Today, anything that happens, you are straight away part of that network. And this is what all compounded. And then the very foolish decision of the Nepalese government to ban the digital communication, where 24 platforms overnight were asked to be licensed, otherwise to be taken off the air. Now, this is where the whole issue is combined together. And we found that there was a sudden outburst in Nepal. And we found that Prime Minister, not only resigning, had to flee the country. Now, similar circumstances people had witnessed in 2024 in Bangladesh, and before that in 2022 in Sri Lanka. And that is where it becomes an eye-opener for any governance. Whenever you govern a country, you need to be transparent. You need to be accountable. Without this transparency and accountability, the government cannot prosper or cannot sustain itself. And what happened in Nepal was that there was a general pathological reaction that certain privileged section of society, their children were enjoying life more than a common man's person. And that is where the outburst started. And the digital communication became very handy to mobilize people. So that is where the problem arose, and you found how Nepal suddenly went into turmoil. Now always remember, economics, good economics is good politics. Bad economics is bad politics. No political establishment can survive on bad economics. Always remember, economics will catch up and will demolish whatever narrative you are building up. And this is how is relevant from South Asia, examples of South Asia. Similar incidents had happened in Indonesia, similar incidents had happened in various other countries. But for our neighborhood, these 3 countries became primary important, and there we have to learn how opaque system of governance cannot be sustained. And that is why I thought I will introduce the subject of RTI, right to information. Now, whenever I ask you what is right to information, I am just introducing my topic after giving you a certain example, because right to information is part of an overall governance. And unless you improve the governance, the political establishment of any country will always be under the threat. And good governance means good politics, good economics. And it has to be linked up because the benefits are consequential. And that is where the RTI came in existence in India in 2005. Now, you must be aware that any law made in any country is either by the judicial president or customs or convention of that country or based on the United Nations resolution. RTI came on the basis of United Nations resolution. And what was the idea of bringing in RTI? RTI was to make it empower a common citizen of India. Now, what is empowerment of a common citizen of India under RTI? You have a right to ask questions. You have a right to question the government, not only on the policy matters, but also on the implementation of the policies. And today, when I sit in the commission, I get thousands of applications asking for all kinds of details regarding government expenditures. Now, always remember, RTI primarily is for public authority. And what is a public authority? Anything constituted under a government statute. And what is a statute? Any act passed by the legislature. It could be a state act or it could be a central act. And RTI is a central act. RTI was passed by the parliament. So the state government has no choice except to implement the RTI. And what is the purpose of RTI? To increase transparency and accountability of public officials. And how does it help a common citizen? The more the transparency, the more the accountability, the more the better governance. The moment you have an opaque system of governance, you can confront a situation what happened in Nepal, where the Nepal government was absolutely opaque. The Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister of Nepal, what did he say before this agitation started? He said, the Generation Z may ask for anything. We cannot get threatened and we cannot concede to all their demands. Now, this was a very cynical remark he made. And what did it happen in next 48 hours? He was overthrown. So that is why the governance becomes very important, and with that view in point, the RTI was brought in 2005, and all public authority. And the then Prime Minister, Mohan, when he was brought this bill in the parliament, he gave a very remarkable statement. He said 33% of our GDP comes as a part of the government expenditure in our economy. Therefore, there should be more accountability, more transparency for whatever expenditure we are doing for the public at large. And that was the reason why he said RTI will become an effective tool in the hands of a common citizen to make our government more accountable. And we started the journey in 2005, and this is 2025. It is an appropriate time to study whether RTI has helped a common citizen or not. This is what is the purpose of an RTI, any question under RTI to be asked. And the RTI envisages that every institution should have a public information officer designated. So all your queries have to be first answered by the PIO, what we call Public Information Officer. And he must answer all your queries if you are part of the public authority. Now there shall always be a debate, what is a public authority? Whether all government or government-linked institutions are public authority. Now let me quote few examples very recently. We have a Century Club in Bangalore. I don't know how many of you are in Bangalore who have heard. Century Club is an entertainment club located right in the heart next to the Vidhan Sabha. Now the question asked was whether Century Club comes under RTI. And the matter came to the commission. Commission directed that we don't allow Century, all these clubs are functioning here. The matter went to the High Court. And what did the High Court say? The Century Club made submission in the High Court saying all our operational expenses are met through subscription and there is not a single paisa received from the government. The High Court said in 1913, when the club was started, the Maharaja of Mysore had donated land to your club, and therefore you come under the purview of RTI because that is what is called the substantive financing of the club by the then Maharaja of Mysore, who belonged to the state. And that is how the Century Club was brought under the purview of RTI. So today, any question on any of these organizations, they are duty bound to answer such question. Why? Because they sit on a land which was allotted by the government. Similar stance was taken for Bangalore Golf Course also. It is a PWD land, government land, on a long-term lease of a very minimal amount. Again, their plea was that this is all run by the membership, subscription. The court did not agree, the commission did not agree, and they brought it under the purview of RTI. So RTI is an empowering act. It's not a regulatory act. Please remember. And first time in our history, we brought an act to empower a citizen. And a citizen is free to answer, to seek answer to any question. Now, since I took over in the Karnataka Information Commission, we had a very peculiar situation, the National Law School. Now, there was a question asked for National Law School. What is your cutoff mark for admission under various categories? Now, you see, we have affirmative action for certain section of our society. And the affirmative action is reservation to allow marginalized, deprived section of people to secure access to elite institutions. That is a part of the government policy. Now the question asked was cut-off marks for all categories. Now there are two kinds of reservation in India. One is called vertical reservation, the other is called horizontal reservation. Now the vertical reservation in India is caste group reservation. SC, ST, OBC, all these are vertical reservation. The horizontal reservation is PWD quota, people who suffer from disabilities, ex-servicemen quota, all this comes under the horizontal. Now the question asked was that cut-off marks for all these groups. Now if you see the UPSC list, when they publish the civil service qualifying examination, every candidate is listed against the category. So the question came, why can't National Law School declare the cut-off marks? And the matter came before my bench. And I also applied by mine. And the plea taken by the National Law School, Bangalore, which is opposite your institution, located here, they said it will impinge upon the Copyright Act of our admission process, and therefore we are not in a position to give. We took a very, what you call, considered view, and we decided that the disclosure of cut-off marks does not become invasive. Now, what is invasive? Right of privacy. Therefore, giving information shall not intrude upon privacy of any candidate. And it is only a disclosure of a marks, which is called statistical detail. It has nothing to do A, B, C, D, which marks who has got. Because under RTI, personal details cannot be disclosed. And this is a famous Supreme Court order, right of privacy. Therefore, right of information has to be balanced with right to privacy. And what is the right to privacy? Disclosure of an individual marks is a right of privacy. It cannot be disclosed. Your bank account, your telephone number, your details of past individual candidate, all this comes under right of privacy. Therefore, even if you seek information under RTI, it cannot be disclosed as if it intrudes on your privacy. And that is where in the commission, our job is highly adjudication. We adjudicate. We try to understand whether it involves right of privacy, and then we give a verdict, and then only we allow information to flow. And that is where we have been doing. And you know, in Karnataka, we have every year about 4 to 6 lakhs of application coming under RTI. So RTI has become a very, very popular means of getting information. And I feel this was the best act enunciated by the government to empower a citizen. Now, as you know, everything has a fallout. Therefore, some people may be misusing that. That is a secondary part, but primarily it has empowered everyone. Now, I went to Belgaum. Now, one candidate came to me. She wanted to join as associate professor in medicine in a college there. Now, what was her contention? She said the advertisement did not tally with the rightful selection. Now, you see, hundreds of candidates today feel that they have been wronged while the government selection is on. And her contention was that what they advertised and what they selected, there was a mismatch. Now, as a part of the commission under right to information, we directed the registrar that you must give proper information whether the selected candidate corresponds with the advertisement you put up in the paper. And the girl's contention was that I have been a topper all through my life and I have been deprived of a job which I deserve to get. Now, these are the wrongs which can be corrected under RTI. Please remember, there are innumerable wrongs which can happen. And what has the RTI provided for? RTI has provided for punitive action. Any public servant deliberately, out of mischief, causes either a delay or denial of information can be penalized under RTI. And the person who suffers can also be compensated. And there is a deadline, 30 days within which you have to give the information. So all these are various ingredients of the RTI. And today when I preside over this act in the state of Karnataka, I personally feel that it is a great opportunity to ensure that every common citizen benefits out of it. And when you have a right to information, it has been upgraded by the Supreme Court as a part of fundamental right. The right to life under Article 21. Right to knowledge. You have a right to know, it is part of right to life. That is Article 21 of the Constitution. That is what is called the fundamental right. And once it is elevated to the rank of fundamental rights, you have a right to move into all constitutional courts if you are still aggrieved with the orders of the Commission. So you can file a writ petition. Now you all know in political economy, what is writ? Writ is a court direction to the government to follow its directive. So tomorrow if a court or a high court or a Supreme Court gives a direction under RTI to share information, we are all duty bound to give such information. So this is what I just wanted to speak to you on an introductory manner. I didn't want to get into a lot of minute details of the RTI because it doesn't concern your curriculum in a direct way. It is part of a general awareness and it is also part of what you are likely to do after once you step out of this institution. But always remember, a good governance always should carry transparency and accountability. It is an empowering act. It makes you feel stronger and it makes every public servant accountable to a common citizen. So with these words, I don't want further to talk, but if there is an interaction, I would further elaborate. And I must wish you all the best because economics is my favorite subject. The more you get seriously involved in economics, you will find the dividends are more. Now, when I talk of dividends, I don't mean commercial dividends. I mean knowledge base becomes higher and better. Whatever field you may choose, whether you choose a civil service career or you choose an academic career, or you choose a corporate sector career. You will find economics is the mainstay, and that was the idea of coming and interacting with you today. So thank you once again for a very patient hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your time, experience, and insights with us today. That was truly a fresh and innovative approach. And so we will indeed be having a Q&A session at a later juncture. Your words have already given us much to reflect upon, be it as citizens of the Republic, learners of economics, and contributors to society. May I now invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Vishwanatha, to kindly deliver the presidential remarks and share his thoughts with us. Sir, would you like to shift it?
Yes.
Please raise your hands for any questions.
Good evening, sir. Sir, basically, as per election affidavit, so we have to disclose our all the documents. Is my degree is right under right to privacy?
Is your
Degree is under right to privacy?
You see, whenever a degree is issued by an institution, they need not give personal detail about your degree to a third party.
Okay, sir.
Third party means if I ask for your details of your mark sheet, then I am a third party.
Sir, as per
The institution can deny information to me. But as long as you seek the degree, you are a primary person who wants details of your degree. If supposing it has been denied to you, you have right to know why it was denied and what was the reason for denial. But for a third party, there is no access to your privacy.
sir, as per election affidavit, then we have to disclose our degree and everything, sir.
That is a mandatory requirement under election laws. Whether any criminal case is pending, whether you have graduated, if there is. Now let me give you an example. Recently, Delhi High Court was seized of the matter regarding the qualification of our Prime Minister.
Yes, sir. I'm talking about that only.
Now the question that came was, RTI works under public interest. You know, if there is a public interest, you have a right to disclosure. If it overrides your personal interest. Now what did I say? RTI must be balanced with your right to privacy. Now the Delhi High Court has very rightly said, public interest varies from interest of public. They have used the terminology, interest of public and public interest. And they said there is no right to know whether Mr. Modi ji graduated, in which year, in what degree, from where. So all those information was denied. And earlier it was the CIC, what is called Central Information Commission, had ordered that the degree details of Prime Minister must be disclosed, against which the Prime Minister went in appeal to the Delhi High Court, and Delhi High Court said there is no public interest. There may be interest of the public to know about him, but that cannot form the basis of disclosure of information. So the
Sir.
matter was closed there.
Sir, suppose I want to go to stand for election in future. So as per that, I can tell election commissioner that I am not going to disclose my degree and everything. Rather, you just register my name for the filing the nominations.
You see what has happened over a period of time due to court judicial intervention. Your personal details, since you are fighting for a public office, all these details must be put on a public domain. Now, what is a public domain? Your qualification, your criminal antecedents, whether any criminal case is pending against you. Now, why it is necessary? Because you stand for an election and you want to hold a public office. The citizens have a right to know about your details, how much and what you are. Because any big commodity fighting an election, the citizens will have knowledge deprivation. And that is why all these details become mandatory under People Representation Act to put it on the website.
So technically, both are the
There
contradictions.
is a contradiction, but then we have to balance both. Right to information, right to privacy, and in public interest, right to information dominates right to privacy. Because the ultimate choice is public interest. In public interest, RTI shall dominate the right to privacy. That is what it is.
Thank you, sir.
But there should be a public interest. And what is a public interest, you know? Public interest means interest of the community at large. So if the community needs to know, it must be provided the information. Now I am sitting at home and you want to know all my details, whether it is in public interest or not. It is my right to privacy. Therefore, I don't share those details with the community at large. But tomorrow, if I hold a public office, you will have a right to know about my antecedent, my all details. That is where the public office becomes very important, because it is in public interest. If I am a retired person sitting at home without any public activity, nobody has a right to intrude on my privacy. But tomorrow, if you apply for civil services, you are applying for a public job, everything should be put on that domain. UPSC. Now you need to be a graduate to become a civil servant. So all those details will be brought on the public. Then if you are availing any affirmative benefit like reservation, you have to put it on public. But otherwise, asking for a caste of any person comes under the category of personal, which is right of privacy. Now suddenly, if you ask me what is your caste, I have a right to deny that information. But if I am using my caste to get any public benefit, for example, admission, for example, a government job, then you have a right to know under which category he has come. If I am a general candidate, you have the right to know that I am a general candidate. So all these are details, which has to be done in public. A lot of time we get application, PWD, disability, which medical board gave a certificate for PWD. Now, PWD people also get what you call the benefit in public employment. So again, that has to be disclosed. Otherwise, there is no need to disclose. All these are matters which you have to. The inverted comma word is public interest. Once it comes under public interest, privacy has to be sacrificed and information has to be provided.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. My question
Saying
is,
of Prime Minister, what did the Delhi High Court say? There is no minimum qualification for the post of Prime Minister. So why do you want to know whether it is a graduate or not?
sir, we are providing our detail to election commission.
So they said the matter is closed because we have not prescribed the minimum qualification for any elected office. Whereas for a civil servant, there is a minimum qualification. If you are not a graduate, you are not eligible. Similarly, if you join academics, if there is a minimum qualification of PhD, then I have a right to know whether you are a doctorate or
Good evening, sir. Again, my question is that you have served in IB, Intelligence Bureau. The question is like now you are serving in RTI. So, like certain section, like citing that national security, we put IB out of the domain of RTI, and similarly with armed forces. So, my question is that oftentimes, we have wrongful detention by IB, or sometimes we. Sometimes, I don't exactly know how exactly IB works, but sometimes there are wrongful detention of people, through IB, but we don't have any provision in our RTI to get information regarding that. So, what's your view on that? Should be there a view like RTI should be like IB should come under the provision of IB?
Then your question is very good. Under the right of exemptions, under RTI, sovereignty and security of the nation has been taken out from the domain of RTI. So anything that affects the security and sovereignty, it is not, we are not supposed to give information. Now about the wrongful detention which you asked. Now, wrongful detention is illegal detention in any place, whether it is police station or any detention center. Now we get a lot of queries on wrongful detention in a police station. That is why the Supreme Court mandated that all police stations must have CCTVs. Now there is always a conflict that comes up. We get hundreds of applications from a lot of lawyers. Sir, I was detained for a few hours in the police station. I want the CCTV footage. Now what you know what the reply, I am also a police officer, ex-police officer now. The police, what will they say? Such footages cannot be shared because there are other details incorporated in that footage. For example, during the time what he alleges to have been illegally detained, there were girls, ladies sitting. There were certain other POXCO cases, victims sitting in the police station, which is also in the footage. Therefore, sharing of information will go against the right of privacy of those people. Now, technologically, there is a section in RTI which says you sever all such information and giving the relevant information. Now, again, the question that comes, practical difficulty. Deletion of such information becomes a challenging task because each police station doesn't have cyber forensic to delete such data. So, in 90% cases, we are finding we are not able to provide CCTV footages to the victims of any illegal custody that may have occurred in the police station. But mandatorily, the Supreme Court has mandated that CCTV footages must be given whenever such violation of human rights takes place. And it is mandated that each police station must have a CCTV. Today's newspaper also you may have seen, the matter has again gone to Supreme Court. And they are now working out, Delhi IIT has been tasked that some AI methodology must be adopted. That whenever police switches off the CCTV, it creates an alarm so that people can take immediate retrieval action. So these are all part of human rights, and we must provide CCTV. Regarding IB detention, you know IB is not a police organization. It is only an intelligence gathering information. And any detention by IB is not possible. They cannot do any detention, but they do interrogation. So again, you will say interrogation implies detention. But there are instances where we have to detain, we have to take somebody for interrogation. And now, whether you interpret interrogation as detention, it is an open question. You cannot, but if you are detaining him for a long period, you must follow the legal principle. Otherwise, you can be also accused of having done a wrongful detention. So this is all part, but IB as such is exempted from RTI.
Thank you, sir.
So may I? So this falls beyond the purview of the RTI and your initial statements on the economic side. But do you opine that conditional or unconditional cash transfers, given that in the Indian context we have limited research on how it influences our youth labor supply or labor market curves? So in this context, would you do you believe that it's more advantageous than, say, traditional welfare programs such as Manrega?
You see, we get hundreds of queries on all the welfare programs that is being carried out. Narega becomes a very pet subject for most of these RTI activities. And we are mandating Narega detail must be provided. Now, whether you are a third party or whatever, a person has a right to know in this locality what Narega programs have been done. So any welfare programs that comes under the purview of RTI. That is why you see 33% of GDP is used as a government expenditure. And therefore, every citizen has a right to know anything for that matter. You see, we get hundreds of queries on the tender floated. All these violations must be highlighted, and that also all documents are collected under the RTI.
Excuse me, sir, I'm sorry, but my question was actually your personal opinion on whether you believe, like you mentioned cash transfers to unemployed youth. So do you believe that they are more advantageous than traditional workfare programs if you put conditions such as upskilling clauses?
This is a very economics question.
Yes, sir.
My answer in short will be any transfer payment is not an income. We should always try to do programs which are income generating. Always remember, I transfer some money to my own daughter who is a grown up. It is not her income. That is transfer payment. What is our ultimate aim? Income generation in the economy. Only income generation can lead to economic growth. Transfer payment doesn't lead to economic growth. So all these DBT, what you call the direct transfer of money, it is not creating income in a what they call a traditional sense. So freebies are okay for marginalized section, but freebies cannot sustain the economy. Always remember that. And that is why when you widen the scope of freebies, the economy starts stagnating. So the purpose of any economy is push for investment, push for economic growth, then only it will have a multiplier. Now giving a stipend to an unemployed person. You ask that unemployed person, are you happy with the stipend? And what will be his reply? He will always look for a job which generates income. A stipend doesn't give the kind of income that he aspires for.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is similar to his question, Suraj's question. So, it is our right to protest and ask questions, but we have also been taught that it is our duty to protest and ask questions for the healthy functioning of the democracy. So, sir, as many facets of the government have been kept out of the RTI, like armed forces, as you said, but we as citizens, should we draw a line after that? We should not be asking questions, or there shouldn't be a line at all. For example, some of the JMU students that had been detained under the UAPA Act, their trial has not even started. So it is a question on our part, the citizens, that should we be asking questions at a point, or that should be accepted?
Many questions are always desirable, but let me talk about RTI first. In RTI, we have 1,000 exemptions. And let me be very brief on that matter. One aspect I told you, sovereignty and security of a nation. You can't give questions on that. Number 2, court proceeding. Number 3, any matter under inquiry, investigation, again details cannot be provided because it may impede investigation by the police. Number 4, personal security of a person. If you ask my address, where I stay, my children's address, again it affects the personal security. So such information are denied. So all these are various categories where exemptions have been provided on the RTI. Now your question on the security agencies, whether you should ask question or not. Anything that is relatable to such issues of security of a nation, like army deployment, if you ask which battalion is deployed on which border. Now, all these are security concerns. We cannot divulge such information. But matter of in public interest, which does not affect the security sovereignty, you have a right to know. Like for example, we do get questions from these organizations which are exempted. An employee asking for his promotion within that organization. Now, those questions are allowed. But because they do not fall under the domain of security and sovereignty. But if the moment they fall in that domain, then it becomes a problem. But employee of any organization has a right to use RTI to find out details if anything wrong has been done. That kind of question is allowed. But exemptions are about 1,000 exemptions, which I gave you just said. Parliamentary proceeding, cabinet papers, personal security. All these come under the domain of exemptions. They are under the RTI. But still, if you exclude all these exemptions, you still have a large domain to ask questions. As I gave you certain illustration.
No, sir, but the fact that the government has it's not about any government, but there has been a tussle between the citizens and the government, that the government, not just within the government, but the government all over the world, have a tendency to hide information under the acts, various acts or other
You
acts.
see, wherever you work in government, there is a tendency not to divulge, because you don't want to be questioned. See, whenever I am holding a position of authority, I don't like anybody to question me. And that is why RTI was brought. You see, before 2005, nobody asked us questions. And neither we were obliged to answer you. That is why we always were regulatory in approach. And the government approach was regulate people. After 2005, when RTI came, we are empowering you to ask questions. So if I occupy a post or any office, you have the right to ask. Now you may say about that instance of JNU, UAPA cases. Now as long as those cases are in investigation or in trial, again you cannot, because you can seek details from the court, not from the RTI. That is our CRPC. If you are an accused or if you are a victim, you get all the details from the court till the trial is on. Once the trial is over, again you fall back on the RTI to get all the details. If an investigation is closed, supposing, then all the details can be given. But during the process of inquiry, investigation, and trial, details have been exempted under RTI because you have an alternative forum of the court where the CRPC dominates. And under CRPC, a victim or an accused can seek all information.
Thank you all. Okay.
Good evening, sir. I'm Prasad. My question is regarding there was a recent case of electoral bonds where Supreme Court chose right to information as a better alternative than over privacy of the companies which have funded the political parties. So when we are talking about political parties, there are not a statute body which are which have come by legislature or whether by passing of any legislature bill. So what are your views on regarding this?
This is very good. Electoral bond, was a very controversial matter until the court intervened. And then the court asked them to give information on electoral bonds. Who is subscribing to these bonds and who is financing these bonds? And which are the political parties which are beneficiary of these bonds? Earlier to that, they had been mandated that the people who contribute to the electoral bond, their identity shall not be disclosed till the court intervened. And therefore, electoral bond at one time became very popular. Subsequently, it has declined because it was being used as a finance for all political parties. Now, what is the take on the RTI? Let me tell you. RTI covers only public authority. What is a public authority? Any institution formed under a statute or a product of a statute. Number three, if you are substantially financed by the government, then you come under RTI. If these three clauses don't hold, then you don't come under RTI. Now, if you take a private admission in a private university, whether that university will come under RTI? No. But if you take admission in a government institution, then everything shall have to be transparent and accountable, and all information have to be shared. That is how it is done. So electoral bond was a classic case where denial of information was embedded into the bond itself right in the beginning, till the matter went to the court and court took a view on it.
Regarding when the private companies are giving the money to the political parties as funding through electoral bonds, disclosing them.
It was not to be disclosed, but later the Supreme Court said it has to be disclosed. Now all disclosures have been put on the public domain. And that is when you came to know how many which parties benefited how much.
And doesn't that take down?
That of course it was affecting RTI. And they were not disclosing because they were not coming right in the beginning itself, it was not being disclosed. But now it has again been brought into the domain of the public disclosure. Earlier it was not there. Because the identity itself was not revealed right at the time of subscription of that bond. What happens in RTI, the clause is, if information is not available, then you cannot provide the information. That is the clause. Number two, the RTI cannot force an institution to create information and give information. You can only give information which is available with you. So, for example, I cannot ask this institution to create information and give information. They can only share information which is in their domain. You get the point? So, if it is not there right from the beginning, I cannot ask them to create information.
So good evening, sir. Like he said, through electoral bonds, if X company giving crores to BJP or Congress after election through RTI, can I know what they did with the money or how they spend the money through? Can I ask?
Now it has been made applicable. Earlier it was not. Now the Supreme Court said you have to give the details, and therefore details are being provided.
Another question, sir. As you said before, because of low governance, the Nepal government has been fall down. It has been collapsed. So now a new government has been formed. They will appoint a new governance. So you think again the government won't collapse?
Now you see, my contention was that whenever a governance suffers, street protest becomes dominant. Every country has a system of governance through election. Now, when you are going to sabotage election and select a government in a parallel way, is it right or not? Is a question mark. For example, government in Bangladesh. Every government has to be legitimate. And what is legitimacy of a government? Through a process adopted by the constitution. Now here we find an elected government overthrown by street protest. That is why on the day they took office, they said election within 6 months. Same thing happened in Bangladesh. And why did this happen? My contention was not to win. I was just giving you the relevance of RTI in good governance. The more you become opaque, non-transparent, non-accountable, this is the fate that happens to any government. That is why for any government, governance should be the primary responsibility and primary thing to be carried out. And how do you improve governance? Through accountability and transparency. And that is why I said RTI was the biggest contribution to our Indian political system. All the public servants may resent RTI, but you know it contributes into confidence building exercise. And that is why RTI contribution is very important. This is what is my underlying message to all of you. That RTI builds up confidence of the common. The moment you can access information, you feel empowered. The moment I deny information, you feel helpless. And the only manifestation that comes is street protest, which happened in countries adjoining.
So do you think our India has a good governance?
India.
India
has a good governance. I will not like to tell you, you should be able to give a perception. But let me tell you one thing. You see, if you read A.K. Sen, have you heard of Amartya Sen?
Yes.
Amartya Sen concept is Niti and Nyaya.
Then why is still corruption around?
Niti and Nyaya, you must have read his book, The Idea of Justice. Amartya Sen was a professor who used to give lecture in Delhi School of Economics at one time. Now what is Niti? Niti is policy. And what is Nyaya? Outcome. Every policy must have an outcome. And please read that book whenever you get a time. It's still highly relevant. When Niti is good, Nyaya will be automatic consequence of good Niti. And therefore, when RTI is there, the consequence has to be better, not worse.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm a faculty here, but I have a very fundamental question. It may be completely misplaced, but what is the extent of media trials that is tolerable? And do you think there are any conflicting objectives with media trials and RTIs in this age of social media? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable talking time. Thank you.
I understand, you see, when we hold public office, and I would like to tell you, all of us are at one time or the other in our service area have been subjected to this kind of media information. For whatever reason, I won't say anything. It could be personal, it could be professional. And in this case, I just give you a short illustration. I was just reading, you see a group of people went to excavate a cave. And the cave fell down and all these group got caught inside. So to survive, they killed one person. Now when they were rescued, they came out, all were charged with murder. Now the point was, the contention before the court was necessity to survive. So out of 8, 1 died, 7 survived. Whether they should be hauled up because they willfully killed a person. So it involves murder. One judge who was an absolute literal translation of the statute, he gave them death sentence. The second judge said purposive building of the statute. It was necessity for the others to survive, so there was no deterrence involved. But why do you give punishment for deterrence? In this case, there was no involvement of deterrence, so he should be acquitted. The third one, judge said it is a realist. He went by the gossips, the media, and he thought this is a necessity again. So media trial, where does it enter? It enters in the third category. And who benefits? The people who have been already accused. To the extent that you make the judges biased against you. So by the time the matter comes before a judiciary, which has to be absolutely impartial, they get biased and they do all kinds of. That is why media trial is highly, what you would say, very, very questionable. And it should not be done. Now you have seen the case of that famous film actor who committed suicide during COVID time. Sushant Singh. Now you have seen the media trial. Why I am talking of this case? Because we were all jobless that time. General lockdown in the country. Everyone was watching TV. And this particular suicide case became not only murder, also drug abuse, also financial trial. Everything was added. Finally, what happened in that case? Nothing happened. It was clearly taken as a case of a simple suicide by a person who is not able to come out successfully. Now, what did the media do? They demolished the reputation of so many people. Please understand. And today, what do you find? The net result was big zero. So the media trial uses Article 19. What is Article 19 of Constitution? Freedom of speech and expression. Therefore, the moment you start curtailing media, everybody says violation of Article 19. And that is where the Nepalese government in Nepal committed the biggest blunder of banning all the social media platforms. Now imagine we are all, each one of us is hooked to a social media. And suddenly a message comes that you are off. What is your first reaction? Your first reaction is absolutely deplorable, that you have been cut off from the rest of the civilization. Therefore, I would always believe, but we have to learn to survive in this generation of explosion of information. It is not just the TV debates that today you will be, the moment you open a social media, you get all kinds of information. And the moment you forward it, you come to know that it is a fake news which you are forwarding. So you have to be very cautious. You have to apply your mindset and recheck before you do any kind of success. Otherwise, it can cause havoc in the society. But then the alternative of banning is not an option at all. Please remember, you You have seen what happened in Nepal. If you ban, it doesn't help at all. It creates more human mongering, and that is where the problem arises. So let us have an open society. That is a better way of functioning than to be a closed society.
Hello, sir. My question is that in today's AI generation, where we are seeing new models being developed like on a weekly basis, and it is getting difficult day by day to whether say an image generated is generated by AI or that it is an original image. So what happens when these AI models get so advanced that it is utterly difficult to know that it's an original document or a manipulated document. So my question is, what are the measures being taken so that this thing can be avoided and used against people?
You see, in police, we have started cyber forensic lab. And all digital evidence in the new law, criminal laws that has come up, all digital evidence has been made admissible. But with a caution, it must be certified. You see, I can create anything under AI accusing you of any offense. But should we take it as it is? No. But digital offense in this digital era, you cannot deny such evidence. It has been made admissible under the BNS. Now IPC is known as BNS. CRPC is known as BNSS. Admissibility with a caution that it must be certified by cyber forensic. That is where the police department is creating cyber forensic in every district, so that such evidences, if it comes, should be first corroborated. Because anyone can create any evidence on you. Your voice can be tallied, your photograph can be tallied, your dress can be tallied. Now, if we jump to conclusion on the basis of AI generated evidences, then there will be total chaos in criminal jurisdiction. That is why cyber forensic is mandatory. Must be certified, must be verified, and must be corroborated.
Sir, are constitutional bodies like judiciary accountable under the RTI?
You see, there was a case regarding collegium where you appoint the judges. Now those things, the Supreme Court said it is not under RTI. Now the second question about judges is, can you seek information about judges? Now under RTI judiciary, we can ask for information, but it is a procedure in the court which has to be gone through. So most of the details we do not get under RTI about judges. I am telling you the practical side. But all judges or any public servant is subject to RTI. Now, what happens is, how is a judge appointed? Judge is appointed by collegium. There is no public service examination for a judge. Therefore, the collegium recommendation regarding any person to be appointed as a judge is kept as a confidential. It is not put on a public domain. That is how the situation stands. But all other details we can secure about a judge through RTI, provided it does not, again, right to privacy has to be exercised. In public interest, you can seek information, but denial comes under right of privacy.
A warm thank you to all of the participants who asked questions and made this a more engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you again, sir, for indulging us. I would now like to invite our Finance Officer, Mr. Prasad, to deliver the vote of thanks. Oh, my apologies, sir, my apologies. Vice Chancellor, sir, shall deliver the presidential remarks.
I'm not going to take more than 5 minutes. I just finish it within 5 minutes. So the respected guest of today's special lecture program, Mr. Ashith Prasad, Chief Information Commission, Government of Karnataka, Information Commission. When he called me first time a week ago, probably a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he wanted to have a visit this campus. But same time he told me that we are completing 2 decades of this Right to Information Act. The act was enacted in the year 2005. I think that year we witnessed in UPA first regime under Prime Minister Mohan Ji. We witnessed 3 landmark laws. The one is right to information, RTI Act. Another is right to education and right to food. These were the 3 landmark laws that UPA one. Under Manmohan Singh government enacted by Parliament. So the very basic principle on which our democracy, our Parliament is organized is the fundamental principle of democracy by the people of Parliament. And in parliamentary democracy, the Parliament can access anything. The Parliament is supreme. Whatever is accessible to Parliament, or whatever is possible for Parliament to obtain with regard to information, whether it is with regard to individual or institutions or anything for that matter, must also be made available to the citizens. And this is the fundamental principle on which this RTI Act came into existence. The very basic objectives of RTI, as you all know, is to empower the citizens. Because in any democracy, especially in developing countries, we have been facing very serious challenges in holding accountable the government, especially in terms of implementing major projects, programs, and policies, and so on. Because they are directly impacting the welfare of the society, of people. So transparency and accountability is very important for successful governance or successful governance. Any government, including India. Because of these problems, lack of democracy, lack of good governance, as in the Retd, the neighboring governments fell down in the middle before completing their terms. India is a bit strong because of our constitution. Constitution gives a lot of provisions, makes a lot of provisions for alternatives. So if citizens are not empowered, it's very difficult to achieve these accountability and transparency in our governments. There comes the importance of access to information. As students of economics, we are aware the theory of asymmetric information by Joseph Stiglitz, where he talks about unequal access of information to people or consumers, which leads to inefficiency in decision making or decision making, and also leading to market failure. Therefore, very efficient and perfectly functioning market system cannot be realized so easily unless we make a provision for the equitable access or equal access to information. So the role of government, the role of civil society, and many other agencies can be understood in this context. So when we are celebrating 20 years of this RTI, it is highly relevant to have a relook how the society has been transformed over a period of 20 years after this RTI goals are being implemented. I think, I don't know how many of you have experience with RTI, but certainly I have. So some of the dimensions he explored, he just put up before you. but there are hidden dimensions in RTI. Just the other day I was reading Shailesh Gandhi's article appeared in the Hindu national newspaper. Recently the government of India has brought one more act, DPD, Digital Personal Data Protection, under which it has made provision to deny many essential informations in the name of decency and privacy and morality. And if anybody violates, the prescribed penalties is up to 250 crores. The question is, when government brings such kind of provisions, does it really needs to free flow of information from the government organizations in the public? Can citizens really be empowered? I know, I understand there are many other things associated with right to information. People may try to misuse it. People may try to exploit somebody's privacy, somebody's moral things, somebody's personal information and all that. But when you make provision of penalties like 250 crores, definitely no one takes the risk to proceed obtaining information. I spent 3 years to obtain a set of papers from my own university, my parent university, because somebody had produced fabricated documents, bank documents to the university to obtain certain favor, which was appeared in the newspaper. We chased behind, but we felt miserable. When we applied for information through RTI, and by paying some DDs and all that, postal order and all that, the authorities give only partial information. They deny most of the required essential information. Only when I become member of Executive Council Syndicate, I called for all documents before the council. Only that time I was able to obtain full information of that project. Then I forced the Executive Council to take a decision to file a criminal case against that fellow. Still the case is pending police station, because police have also referred that complaint to some other cell, still denying some sort of information to proceed further. So it shows that how system works, system operates. Even after 2 decades of these 3 laws, landmark laws, the society is still not transformed to the anticipated or expected level. So therefore, I think after listening to our Chief Information Commission, what we need to understand here, still this act needs some refinement. Still we need to bring certain reforms, which certainly improves, the citizens' rights or privileges to obtain information from the government. Because there are a lot of trade-offs between, the different institutions. In this process of, obtaining information, that we lose the very essential information, because the possibilities of, denying and delaying leads to the denial of justice or delay of justice. So therefore, we fail in achieving transparency as well as accountability, which is a very serious threat to the sustainable democracy or democratic governance in this country. This is my opinion. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your presence and your visionary lecture. And our students really benefited from your lecture and they enjoyed interacting with you. I hope you keep coming here and in future we engage you with our students. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, sir, for sharing your experiences. offences with the Right to Information Act and for delivering the presidential remarks. I now invite our Finance Officer, Mr. Prasad, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Firstly, I thank our Vice Chancellor when he asked us to chair the occasion in this busy schedule. He accepted and graced the occasion. I thank you very much from the side of university and from the side of the students. And now I thank our honorable chief guest who gave special lecture on right to information, Ashith Prasad sir, who is a Chief Information Commissioner and a retired IPS officer, who touched from the, though he is an economics student, he touched from the economics, he take you all the way from economics to the RTI, the politics and the geopolitics. I think he took you for a long journey. Within a half an hour, he gave so much of information that you wanted and to this present situation, and that can be envisaged by the questions what you are asking. So I think you are interestingly you have participated in the session. For that I thank Ashith Prasad sir for his time. When we asked him for the special lecture, he accepted in his very busy schedule and blessed the occasion and gave a good lecture. I thank you very much, sir. Thank you, faculties and dear students for the coming for this session and listening for the session. Thank you.